UFC champions are the top of their sport. It's like winning the NBA championship or the Stanley Cup or the Super Bowl, but for the individual fighter instead. It takes a lot to become a UFC champion. Non-stop training, battling injuries, and the climb up the ranking ladder to prove you are the best. Constantly fighting and defeating your opponents is the most definite way of proving you belong at the top of the division. The UFC has placed for 12 champions at a current given time, but due to Amanda Nunes being a dual champion for the women's featherweight and bantamweight divisions, and the fact that the current flyweight championship doesn't have an owner, shame on you Davis and Figueiredo. Thus, at this current moment, there are 10 individuals who we can call UFC champions. I'm Sasha Mox, and today I'm jumping off the cage to rank the current UFC champions in separate tiers. Before we start, let's set the criteria as to what we're going to use to evaluate each individual champion. Number of total fights in the UFC, number of wins in the UFC, number of title defenses, number of title wins, number of titles held consecutively, duration of holding the title, overall competition in the division, and overall dominance. Off the bat, no UFC champion is going to be in the D tier. That kind of ruins the point of a champion. Maybe in the early 2000s, a UFC champion can sneak in there and be put in that tier because they're not really a good MMA fighter, but a lot has changed since then. In the C tier, however, we do have a first entry, and that's Weili Zhang. 21-1, and she's a current women's strawweight champion. Zhang is an extremely gifted striker and constantly proves how talented she is. First Chinese champion, Weili made her debut in 2018. It took her only 3 fights against Danielle Teller, Jessica Aguilar, and Tisha Torres to fight Jessica Andrade for the title. She dominantly defeated her, and her most recent war with Joanna proved that she truly has the heart of a champion. Her lack of overall UFC fights and the fact that some debate her victory over Joanna, while other champions on this list were dominant in their win against Joanna, it's the reason why she's placed in the C tier of our list, but she does have the potential to fully make into a higher rank. This tier is reserved for newer champions who either just became the champion and have yet to defend their strap, or only have a single defense. Kamaru Usman and Alex Volkanovski are both undefeated in their UFC career. They both compete in arguably 2 of the most stacked divisions in the UFC and are some very dangerous fighters. Kamaru is a winner of the Ultimate Fighter and has had a super successful and dominant career in the UFC's welterweight division. He is 11-0 in the UFC, and utter dominance of former champion Tyron Woodley set the stage for Usman to be the champion for a very long time. Usman had his first successful defense against Colby Covington, which saw both men put it all on the line, but if things keep going this way, we don't see anyone dethroning that Nigerian nightmare anytime soon. Volkanovski, on the other hand, went from rugby star to featherweight champion real quick. It took him 7 fights to get a chance to fight for the belt, and on his 8th, he fought longtime champion Max Holloway. He got the unanimous decision nod in a fight that a lot of people saw very competitive. In his run, he also took out former featherweight greats of all time Jose Aldo, and with no title defenses, it's tough to rank Volkanovski any higher than the B tier. Please make sure you click like and subscribe if you haven't already. It helps the channel a lot. We post weekly MMA videos, and we always look to grow what content we're putting out there. The A tier, reserved for the established champions who went through the hurdles to become who they are today. Valentina Shevchenko is a Muay Thai expert, and on this list, she may have the best kickboxing, period. Her UFC record is 8-2, yet she already has 3 successful title defenses. Her 2 losses came to Amanda Nunes, who could arguably be the greatest female fighter of all time, yet she also fought at a higher weight class for years, and she was undersized while also performing well. So Valentina is a very gifted champion, very gifted fighter, and if she strings up a very strong legacy and potentially fights Amanda Nunes, she can clear the S tier easily. Israel Adesanya might be an outlier here due to only defending his belt once, but it's the fashion he fights and the quality he brings that make him feel like an established middleweight champion already. The last stylebender is impressively 8-0 already in his career, which started in February of 2018. That's 4 fights a year basically. That's a lot of fights. He beat some of the best in the division with Anderson Silva, Kevin Gastelum, Robert Whittaker, and Yoel Romero, and he's the only man to walk away from a Romero fight unscathed. That alone classifies him in A-rank material. Stipe Miocic is so close to being S tier. He broke the UFC record for most heavyweight title defenses, and overall, he's a very balanced fighter. If he hadn't lost to DC, he would be S tier. Putting Stipe anywhere below A tier is injustice to the 3 successful title defenses he has had, but that blemish to DC prevents him from going any higher. We'll have to wait for the trilogy bout between DC and Stipe to see where Miocic will rank, but it's the fact that his crisp boxing, strong wrestling defense, and just overall ability to come back from defeat that makes him such a talented and great champion. Henry Cejudo, Love him or hate him, he's pretty damn good. Yes, he does have 2 losses to DJ and Benavidez, even though people think Cejudo might have won that. His last performances have shown he's truly champ material. He overcame his first career loss and beat DJ in a rematch to win the flyweight title, and then moved up a weight class to defeat TJ Duroidzashaw. You guys like that? I made that one up myself. And he actually defended it against the super dangerous Marlon Moraes. So he's able to win a flyweight championship, move up a weight, defeat the steroid-infused champion, and defend it. He carved his name into the UFC history by joining a very select group of individuals to hold 2 belts at the same time, and that alone should allow him to be a very strong candidate for the A-tier ranking. Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now I know this one's going to get a lot of hate, and I am personally a huge Khabib fan, so hear me out. The only reason Khabib is not in the S tier is because he hasn't cleared the division. Out of everyone in the A tier, he is the most dominant. But to be an S tier champion, you have to successfully clear a division. And in the lightweight division, mainly due to the nature of it, there's so many stacked, talented fighters. But there's one man who can also rightfully call himself lightweight champion. That's Tony Ferguson. He has the same amount of consecutive wins as Khabib, and the two are destined to fight many times, but for some reason, it has never come to be. If Khabib had fought and defeated Tony, then absolutely he would be an S tier fighter, and the Eagle from Dagestan could possibly be the strongest S tier champion. However, with fighters like Tony Ferguson and even Justin Gaethje now, he does still have to do some work in the lightweight division before moving up a tier. The S tier, the OP tier, the tier that is reserved for the fighters that have cleared their division as champion. The champions here seem to have disposed of all their challengers so many times that they almost run out of new people to fight. John Jones is the case of a fighter who dominated so early on in his career. He cleared the division, and now it looks like he's repeating that same process he's done earlier. Yes, his last few fights may have been pretty awful calls, especially the ones with Dominic Reyes and Thiago Santos, but the fact remains that he has a total of 11 title defenses. Yes, he was stripped and what have you for doing stuff here and there, but as a fighter, no one else in the UFC has as many UFC title defenses in history than Mr. Bones. It's a fact. You become a champion, defend it 11 times, you are one of the greatest of all time by default, no questions asked. Lastly, we have Amanda Nunes. The Lioness is arguably the scariest champion right now. Since 2015, she has gone undefeated in the UFC and has a record of 10-0 since that time. She's literally defeated all of the greatest women's fighter in history: Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate, Valentina Shevchenko, Holly Holm, and even Chris Cyborg. The reason she isn't stripped of either of her titles is because she can actually continue to defend both of them at the same time. She's cleared out the featherweight division, she's going to clear out the bantamweight division, and she could be a dual champion for the longest time in UFC history. She is the #1 greatest of all time women's fighter ever, and can possibly be one of the best fighters, period, regardless of gender, if she continues her dominance and just sheer destruction in the UFC.